Hey everybody, it's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again today. We are well into book trek here, and this of course is the book trek of Peter David for me. We have finished up Peter David's first TOS book, The Rift. And I gotta tell you, it was a lot of fun. Typical Peter David, mix of action and sci-fi, and a little bit of everything, a little bit of everything. A little bit of a time skip as well, which is always fun, where you get to deal with kind of two different periods in time. So, definitely a lot going on here. So, as you can see, the copy that I read has really been through the ringer, and that was not me that did it. This is a well read copy of The Rift. And I love it when I get these ones too. As you can see, this was a library copy. This one belonged to the Toledo Lucas County Public Library. The last stamp in here is March 26, 1992. And then unfortunately there was some water damage on June 29th, it says. And that's probably when they put the old girl up for sale here, and somehow it wound up in my hands. Anyway, I love having books that are kind of beat up like that. You know that it's been through a lot of hands, and a lot of people have enjoyed it, right? So there's nothing wrong with that. Now, I guess let's jump right into it here. A mission of peace could trap Spock halfway across the galaxy forever. Star Trek The Rift, the new novel by Peter David. That's kind of like a teaser, they're probably trying to draw people in with that, right? Because, Spock's big, man. Spock's huge, right? All right, anyway, from the back here. The Rift. Every 33 years, a rift in space connects the Federation with a mysterious race called the Caligar, who live on a planet hundreds of light years away, much too far to travel in a starship. Captain Kirk and the USS Enterprise are dispatched to transport a Federation delegation of diplomats, scholars, and scientists, who will travel to Caligar directly during the brief period of time the rift will open. Mr. Spock leads the Federation party as they travel by shuttle through the rift just as a group of aliens arrive in Federation space. A group of the aliens, so they exchanged parties there. The meetings go smoothly until the Caligar takes Spock's party hostage, and Kirk discovers that the aliens are keeping a deadly secret. Ooh. With the angry Tellarite and Andorian fleets ready to attack the Caligar, Kirk must save Spock and the others before war breaks out and the rift closes for another 50 years. Dun dun dun. I liked it when I was reading about this too. You see at the top they say every 33 years, and at the bottom they say every 50 years. Well, what is it? What is it? Is it 33 or is it 50? Anyway, I have not even yet looked in the book about books yet, so we're going to find out together here if there's any information for us here. So we're going to hit the index. We're heading straight to R for Rift. And we are going to be turning to page... Class, turn to pages 90 and 91 in your book. And if you would, please read from the top. Interesting. Got a whole different blurb here than what the back cover is. Captain Christopher Pike and his crew are still reeling from their experience with the Telosians. On the way to Vega for repairs and rest, they encounter a wormhole-like area of space. This rift to the planet Caligar opens every 33 years for a period of 72 hours. After Pike's encounter, time passes, and now it's Captain Kirk's turn to negotiate with the race. Of course, things don't go smoothly. Will Kirk be forced to leave some of his crew behind for 33 years? So interesting. So as you can see, this does cover the Captain Pike era first, and then it gets into the Kirk era. And when we're getting into the Kirk era, this is later on. This is after the movies. Maybe before, like, the 5th movie? I don't know. I guess I could probably place it more readily if I did some research, but, good enough. You can tell from the uniform, right? All right. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I'm going to read to you a lot of information, so just sit tight. Be patient. Peter commented, I was kind of a late starter. When Star Trek was first on, I didn't see the first 2 seasons. I came across the 3rd season one day while I was channel hopping. I was sitting there watching this guy with pointed ears take off these bizarre big glasses, and he starts screaming. There's this guy wearing a yellow shirt grabbing him and being shot through a distorted lens yelling Spock. I thought it looked stupid and I turned it off. Several months later, I was channel surfing and I stumbled onto the Star Trek again. Exact same scene. I got into the James Blish novelizations because a friend of mine recommended them. I started reading them, and I didn't realize they were novelizations. I thought they were really cool stories. As a result of the Blish books, I started watching the show in reruns, and then I read in TV Guide that there had been an actual gathering of Trek fans in New York City. A lot of people don't realize that the article was a major turning point for fandom. It got word out to millions of fans that we are not alone. I went to the next Star Trek convention in New York City. Huh. Well, that is very interesting. I'll continue. Peter continued. I had been writing the Star Trek comic for DC up until the license expired. I was approached by Dave Stern, then an editor at Pocket, and he said to me, I really like your work on the Trek comics. Would you be interested in writing a Star Trek novel? I said, I have some storylines I was never able to complete. This is perfect because I would love to be able to continue and finish storylines that I was doing in the original series comic. Dave said, here's the problem. I've got the original series novels scheduled for the next 2.5 years. I'm fine with those. If you could write a Next Generation novel quickly, I could have that on the stands in 6 months. I said, did I say Star Trek the original series? I meant to say Star Trek the Next Generation. That led to Strike Zone. So Strike Zone was his first novel. Peter commented on the Rift. Here we go. All right. So that was just there. Now you guys got a lot of information about Peter David's background. Now, his comments on the Rift. They needed a Trek novel to fill the hole, and they asked me if I could write it. I drafted up 3 different storylines, and Pocket submitted them without my name on them. I did them in 3 completely different styles. Roddenberry's office wound up reviewing 3 story outlines, all by me. Interestingly, I wrote 1 outline which I thought was fantastic, 1 that I thought was okay, and 1 outline that was simply a conglomeration of old cliches from previous Star Trek episodes. That was the one they liked. I wonder what the other 2 were. Once I got into it, I actually thought I managed to make a pretty decent book. The outline was the most unpromising thing I ever crafted because it was designed to make the other 2 look good. It wasn't designed to be the one that they picked. I love that. I actually like that a lot. So, and I can totally see where that came from, because this is in this book there is like so much of like, you know, coming from this episode, coming from that episode. So for example, here you've got Richard Daystrom and Ambassador Fox, you know, both of course who had their own, you know, little cameos and episodes. They both played, you know, parts in this book. They bring in a delegate for the Tellarites and a delegate for the Andorians. So you have that kind of represented here as well. And I do love what he did. Well, I liked the look back at the Pike #1 and Spock Enterprise. So, anyway, I guess we'll just kind of get into it right now. I like the book. Go out and read it, and if you don't want to be spoiled, I'm going to spoil some of it now as I rant about it for the next 10 to 12 minutes here. So anyway, The Rift by Peter David. It starts out Pike era Enterprise. So you've got Pike in #1, and you've got Spock, and you've got Lieutenant Tyler, and they are the ones who are making their first contact with the Caligar through this rift that is open, right? So I particularly like this because, first off, for me, I was actually kind of picturing like Rebecca Romijn and Ethan Peck, you know, and Anson Mount as, you know, in my mind, right? Because I've seen more of them as those characters than I've seen of the TOS characters as those characters, right? Just because of the amount of Strange New Worlds episodes that I've watched, you know, in comparison to the TOS episodes with them in it, right? So that's kind of the picture that comes to mind. Of course, the Pike in the book is not written like the Pike in the show. I mean, maybe written more like the Pike in the original show, right? But anyway, there's a very interesting dynamic that goes on. That part of the story is very fun. There's kind of like the origin of fascinating, you know, Spock's fascinating. That comes up there. The origin of the computer voice comes up there in that. But basically, the whole story kind of goes around them traveling through this rift to establish first contact with this race, the Caligar, right? So, what do you get when they do that? You get a lot of very fun stuff, really. So you get first off a look at another interesting kind of society, and as you can see on the picture there, it is a, how do I best describe? Their world was somehow destroyed in like some kind of great event, right? So their world now is like a giant blue ball of fire, and they are now out on the basically in orbit around their planet in these giant floating cities that are kind of interconnected with these different kind of like a web-like structure, right? That's how they described it there, a web-like structure. So all right, so they get there and they begin their negotiations. The master builder, who's kind of like the man in charge, his name is Zio. He introduces, his kind of not his assistant, but another member of the ruling group there. Not but someone else who's kind of in charge, and his name was Alt, and they kind of have different points of view. The society as a whole is kind of like isolationists. They want to stay to themselves, and then this Zio, he kind of thinks that it would be helpful to reach out to other races. So that's why they've done this and agreed to kind of do this little exchange of information. Now, of course, the Caligar are much more scientifically advanced than the Federation is at this point. So they kind of like hold that over them a little bit too. It's like, yeah, we do have some good stuff, but we can't show you that. But it's the same thing as the Federation with the Prime Directive, right? So same deal there. But now getting into the kind of the heart of the story, we meet his daughter Ekma, and Ekma is basically she gets to lead around Lieutenant Tyler, and she kind of shows him around the different things that they have on this planet. And I think one of it is kind of akin to like almost a holodeck. And they go down to a beach where she ends up stripping down. He's trying to keep his composure, right? But he eventually ends up succumbing to her wiles, right? And it's a different society there. But then her brother Macro comes in and catches them, and then he gets into they start brawling then, right? On the outside of all this, there's some other interesting things going on. The Caligar take them basically into like one of their rooms, right? And their rooms are all thought generated. So they go into this room where Dr. Boyce sees this as like a French Louis the 15th style or whatever. And then Captain Pike, he sees this same room done up as like a ship's captain room, that kind of thing. So very interesting technology there that just you could really go into for a while as far as thinking about, right? So, but the problem now is that with the Enterprise's passage through the rift, it has done something to the nature of it, and now the rift is starting to close prematurely, which means that they've got to get out of there and they've got to find Lieutenant Tyler. So they're able to get Lieutenant Tyler out of there just at the very last moment, and then as he's getting pulled away and beamed away, right? He sees Macro, Ekma's brother, like grab her and like grope her, and that's like the last thing he sees as he gets beamed away, right? So he's got to be like have that stuck in his head for the next 33 or 50 years, depending on what you read there. So anyway, boom, they get out of there. The Enterprise makes it out safely. Bing, bang, boom. Now we're into that part of the book was called First Contact. Now we're in the part of the book called Second Contact. 33 years later, the Enterprise crew is back at it again. And like I said before, they've brought a major delegation. So we have Richard Daystrom, we have Ambassador Fox. Again, these are both characters from TOS. Like I said, now we know why they're in here, because that was from the outline that he wrote up, which was kind of like just mash a bunch of stuff together, right? And then you have Shandor Dorkin. What a name, right? And Shandor is a title, a Tellarite title. So his name is Dorkin. He's a Shandor. Dorkin the Shandor. And you have Ambassador Thack, the Andorian. So a lot of the fun in the second part of the book does come from the just the back and forth and the interactions between those two ambassadors and the rest of the crew. Peter David does a great job of. There is not enough Tellarite and Andorian representation in Trek, really. There just isn't. I mean, you got like Jankum Pog, he's like your main Tellarite character, and you've got Shran, that's your main Andorian character. But we need more. We need more. Next Star Trek show, let us get a live action Tellarite. You know. Anyway, I thought they were great, but the trouble comes up in this one is basically they agree to send. They're going to send this time, instead of sending the whole Enterprise through because that kind of messed up the rift last time. They're going to send a shuttle through on a warp sled so that it can safely make it through the rift, right? And then the Caligar are going to send a representative out as well. And when they send the representative out, it is none other than Ekma, who has ascended to the title of Master Builder. But to their surprise, she is requesting asylum on the Enterprise, and she does not want to go back to the Caligar. And once she makes that revelation, she kind of falls ill, right? As if she is coming off of a drug or something, right? She's, I can't think of the word. Anyway, but yeah, she falls ill, and she has to be taken to Dr. McCoy's sick bay. And Kirk basically says, well, of course you can stay here, you know, if you fear for your life, right? So, now back on the planet, they show the crew around a little bit, but then when the trouble starts, basically they take them and they lock them all up, right? So they lock them in the room, and now the action really gets started. So you have a very fun little escape scene where they lure this guy in there, they end up getting this guy drunk. Spock is doing double Vulcan nerve pinches. I think he's like flipping people. Just a very good little kind of run to the end of this action scene, right? Where they escape their captivity, they get to the shuttle, knowing that they can't leave these bubble cities, right? Because it's like securely closed. But they fly up. They just barely get away from this crowd of angry Caligars led by Macro. They fly up enough to get radio contact so they can explain the situation. Because Spock, he has done a mind meld with this guy Alt. I think that's what happened. Anyway, and he's got the inside info and basically what is going on with the Caligar. Why does Ekman not want to be there? And what are they going to do from here, right? But they hear pounding from up on the roof. And this dude Macro has managed to hang on to the roof of the shuttlecraft. Now has an iron pipe in his hand. Busts that thing through the window of the shuttlecraft. I mean, I was impressed. This is like superhuman type of behavior, right? This is a shuttlecraft, and dude just kind of busts in, and then he swings in, he starts fighting everybody. And another great Spock scene here too, where Spock is piloting the shuttlecraft with his left hand, and then with his right hand, he's holding off this dude who's trying to hit him with a bar until the Tellarite and the Andorian ambassadors can come in and kind of, get him down. Unfortunately, though, in all the rustle and hustle and bustle, they've wrecked the controls. The ship is going down. Spock tells everyone to buckle up. Everyone gets into their seats except for the Tellarite and Macro. So when they crash and hit the ground, boom, he goes flying out of the window. The Macro guy, he goes flying too. The Macro guy's barely hurt, and of course the Tellarite, he ends up dying from his injuries after telling the Andorian ambassador, tell my people that I died with 24 enemies underneath me and one in each hand, or something like that, which I thought was awesome. So anyway, they get down to this very end, and basically I'll sum it up for you here at the very end. Kirk, on the other side of things, is like, all right, I've had enough. I'm going in. These people respect authority. I'm going to go in and talk to them. So he goes in there to communicate with them and is like, you know what, I forgot to mention, there's a thing called the world mind, and that's kind of like, after everyone dies on this planet, they upload their mind into this thing, and it kind of makes all the decisions for them, right? So they're all up in this world mind thing here, right? And they're having a nice time in there. No. But anyway, Kirk is like, let me talk to the world mind. And they're like, no, you can't do that. That thing's going to blow your mind, right? But anyway, they finally agree that, maybe Spock could handle it. So they go to talk to the world mind. Spock goes in, and he's immediately like, stricken by something. And then Kirk's like, oh no, I gotta go in. And Daystrom tries to stop him, and they both end up falling into the room. So now their consciousnesses are like stuck in this world mind thing, right? Where basically kind of whatever you imagine comes to life. And it turns out the real villain of the day was Ekma and Macro's son, Rhaegar. Yes, Ekma and Macro, brother and sister, had a son named Rhaegar, turned out to be a bad guy, and was sending his mother to an early death so that he could take over. Whoa, man, what a bad guy, right? Anyway, this guy Rhaegar, he's the one that attacked Spock with his mental powers when he came in, but now with the combined might of Kirk and Daystrom's minds, they're able to overcome and fight this Rhaegar. And again, a very cool scene there too, where basically Kirk manifests the shield, he like manifests the sword, he's on an armored horse, he's got armor on, and he's fighting like a giant beast, and eventually he wins, and they're all able to get out of there safely. Hooray! So, what a fun ending. Like a good ride to the finish. It was just a good ride to the finish. I really liked how everything kind of just picked up at a certain point, and it was just like, boom, right to the end. Just, classic fun, classic Peter David, and classic Star Trek goodness. So, that's all I have to say. I think I've said enough. Next week, we're going to be hitting the Disinherited, which is a collaboration with Peter David, Michael Jan Friedman, and Robert Greenberger. So it's going to be good. It's going to be so good. So we'll be back to talk about that soon. As always, my friends, live long and prosper, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good night.